My parents tossed a crumpled $5 lottery ticket at me like it was trash and said, "Here, loser. Good luck next time, LOL." That same ticket won me $581 million. When I told them the news, their faces went pale. Then they fell to their knees, begging, literally begging. But by then, I was no longer their daughter. Just a walking jackpot they'd tried to throw away. My name's Rachel. I grew up in a small town in Ohio where the sidewalks cracked, but my heart cracked more. You'd think every kid gets love from their parents. But for me, love always had conditions. My sister, Amanda, was the golden child. Blonde curls, big blue eyes, dimples you could fall into. She could do no wrong. She failed her classes? My mom would say she's just creative. She wrecked her car while texting? Dad said she's young, let her live. She quit her job 3 weeks in? It wasn't aligned with her energy. Me, I got straight A's. Worked 2 part-time jobs through high school. I once brought home a math trophy and was told, "Trophies don't pay bills." I remember birthdays. Amanda got pony rides and bounce houses. I got a used cardigan and a cupcake. At Christmas, Amanda unwrapped designer shoes while I sat with socks in my lap. But I smiled. Always smiled. Not because I was okay, but because being bitter made my throat hurt more than pretending. I moved out right after high school, got into a local college with some scholarship money, and worked night shifts cleaning offices. It was hard. My hands were always cracked from cleaning chemicals, and sometimes I skipped meals so I could pay rent. But I kept pushing, thinking, one day maybe they'll see me. Once a month, I visited my parents. Not because they ever asked, but because I hoped maybe this time they'd be proud. Then, a few months ago, something happened. Something that shattered the last bit of hope I had. It was Amanda's birthday. I wasn't invited, of course, but I went to drop off a small gift anyway. I'd saved up for a little leather journal. I thought maybe it'd help her focus, or at least feel special. That's when I saw it. A ribbon-cutting ceremony in the backyard. My dad grinning like he won the lottery himself. My mom crying tears of joy. They were giving Amanda a house. A full, renovated guest house. Painted white with lilac shutters. Fully furnished. A fridge stocked with wine. "She deserves it," Mom said, to the group of neighbors clapping around them. "She's our baby." I stood at the edge of the crowd, invisible, holding a $15 journal wrapped in brown paper. Later that night, I confronted them. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe an apology. Maybe we were going to surprise you two. But instead, my dad reached into his back pocket, pulled out a folded $5 lottery ticket, and flicked it toward me like a bug. "There. Maybe you'll get lucky," he snorted. "Good luck next time, loser." Amanda laughed so hard she almost choked on champagne. I didn't cry. I walked away with the ticket, clutched in my fist, nails digging into my palm. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like it might cave in. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my apartment floor, staring at that stupid ticket. Something inside me whispered, "This is just more trash from people who think you're trash." But I didn't throw it away. I shoved it in the drawer next to my bills and forgot about it until everything changed. A week later, I was cleaning out the kitchen drawer. Bills, receipts, old batteries, and that crumpled ticket. For a moment, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to rip it up, burn it even. But a tiny whisper inside said, "Just check." I walked down to the gas station on 6th and Vine. It was drizzling, and I didn't even have an umbrella. My shoes squeaked with every step. The guy behind the counter, Pete, was sipping lukewarm coffee and watching a tiny TV that flickered every few seconds. "Hey, Pete," I mumbled. "Can you scan this?" He gave me that familiar look. The kind you give someone who you know probably won't win. Still, he took the ticket, scanned it, and suddenly he froze. His eyes widened. The scanner beeped, then beeped again, louder. He looked at me, mouth slightly open. "Rachel, do you know what this says?" I blinked. No. Pete took a deep breath. "You just won the Powerball. $581 million. I laughed. I actually laughed. I thought he was messing with me. "Okay, yeah. Funny. I get it. Good one, Pete." But his hand shook as he turned the screen toward me. There it was. The numbers. My numbers. My heart stopped for a second. I touched my chest to make sure it was still beating. I started to feel lightheaded. The gas station felt too bright, too loud, too much. I stumbled outside and sat on the curb in the rain. $581 million, I whispered to myself again and again. That's when the tears came, but not the happy kind. They were heavy, angry. Years of being overlooked, ignored, treated like a second thought. This wasn't just money. It was validation. It was power. I didn't tell anyone right away, not even my best friend. I got legal advice, hired a financial planner, moved the winnings into a trust with my name nowhere public. I changed my number, rented a temporary apartment in the next town, and I stayed silent, but I watched. For weeks, I lived in a quiet storm. Every inch of me was conflicted. Part of me wanted to just keep going, forget the whole thing, take the money and disappear. But then I would hear my mom's voice in my head. You're not like your sister. I could almost hear Amanda's laugh echoing through my mind. Her laughter always felt like daggers, sharp and cold. But it wasn't her I hated. It was what she represented. Everything I wasn't. I was the hardworking one, the quiet one, the invisible one. My mom and dad always compared me to her, and in their eyes, she was the perfect daughter, deserving of everything. And there I was, alone, staring at my phone in a crappy apartment I could barely afford, realizing I wasn't even invited to her engagement party. The text I received from my parents a few days before read, "We're doing something special for Amanda. She needs the love. She needs the love." I couldn't even remember the last time my parents told me they loved me. It wasn't that I wanted to be spoiled like Amanda. I just wanted recognition. A simple, "Hey, we see you," would have sufficed. It was late one night when I finally let the weight of everything hit me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling my heartbeat echo in my ears. I could hear Amanda's voice, then my mom's, then my dad's, all those years of dismissing me, devaluing me. It felt like I was drowning in all the years I'd spent trying to be seen. I reached for my phone, and I almost called them. I almost sent them a message that said, "I won, and I'm not who you think I am." But I didn't. Instead, I threw my phone on the bed and closed my eyes, letting the anger surge through me. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the house or the lottery ticket. It was all of it. The years of being overlooked. My hands were shaking as I held the crumpled ticket that had started it all. The sound of my parents' laughter echoed in my mind. "Good luck next time, LOL." It felt like a slap across my face. The pain of being treated like a joke finally started to seep in. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms, feeling a mixture of sadness and rage that threatened to suffocate me. I knew something had to change, but what could I do? I was a quiet, overlooked daughter who had been built up to think I didn't deserve the same things as Amanda. It was like a constant narrative. Amanda was the chosen one, the beautiful one, the successful one. Then, in the darkness of my bedroom, I realized something. This wasn't just about the lottery money. It wasn't about showing them that I could succeed. It was about taking my power back. I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore. I wasn't going to let them dictate my worth based on what they thought was best. I didn't need to prove anything to them, but that didn't mean I wouldn't. I started to plan. I called a lawyer the next day to set up an appointment for a consultation. I set up meetings with business advisors and financial experts. I hired a PR firm, and I started preparing everything in silence. It wasn't going to be some grand gesture where I revealed the truth all at once. No, I'd do it my way. I'd do it with class, and I'd do it on my terms. The hardest part of all of this was the emotional toll it took on me. I spent hours going over my old journals, entries where I had poured my heart out, wondering if anyone would ever notice me. I remember the night I came home with that trophy from the math competition, so proud of myself. My parents barely looked up from the TV. My mom's only comment was, "Great, but that's not going to pay for college." And then there was the time Amanda, fresh out of rehab for the second time, was met with open arms. "She's our baby, Rachel," my mom had said, her voice thick with emotion. I looked at myself in the mirror that night, barely recognizing the woman who was staring back at me. I was angry. Angry at them. Angry at Amanda. Angry at myself. But more than anything, I was tired. I was exhausted from fighting for their approval. Fighting for a place in a family that never seemed to care about me the way they cared about her. But then something shifted. I wasn't fighting for them anymore. I wasn't fighting for approval. I was fighting for me. I was done being the quiet daughter. I was done being the one they barely acknowledged. And when I finally called them, when I finally sent that text, it wasn't from a place of desperation. It wasn't a cry for help or a plea for validation. It was a message of power. I have something important to tell you. Then I sat back and waited. The silence that followed was a message in itself. I could feel the weight of that one message. I have something important to tell you. I sat in my apartment, staring at the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no going back. I'd already made up my mind. I was no longer the quiet, ignored daughter. I was going to show them what real power looked like. But this needed to be done with precision. It needed to be planned, executed with patience and clarity. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me angry. No, this was going to be silent, calculated. I would make them regret everything they'd ever said to me. The first part of the plan was simple. I had to make sure they didn't know the full extent of my winnings. I didn't want them to hear it from the media. No, they were going to hear it from me. I knew how my parents were. They were traditional, emotional, but weak when it came to power. I could feel it in the way they treated me. My father, the corporate man, always belittled me for being too quiet, too reserved. My mom, the homemaker, always praised Amanda for every little thing she did, no matter how trivial. That imbalance was the crux of my plan. Step 1, silence. I kept my winnings completely under wraps. I didn't even tell my closest friends. They didn't need to know yet. I wanted them to be caught off guard. For my parents, the element of surprise would be the most devastating blow. So I stayed out of the public eye, avoiding social media, dodging questions from anyone who cared about me. I was a ghost, a shadow watching. Step 2, distraction. I knew Amanda would be the biggest threat in my plan. She would never leave me alone now that I had what she wanted. She would be the first to dig in her claws, trying to get a piece of the pie. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I started by texting her casually. Hey, I've been thinking. I'm not sure if I'll be able to help you with that fundraiser you've been planning. Things are just too complicated right now. Her response came almost immediately. What are you talking about? You have money. I know you do. It's not like you have to worry about anything now, right? You should be using your money to help the family. You're just too proud to admit it. I smirked, my fingers itching to hit send. Instead, I calmly typed out a response. Funny, I thought you were all about helping yourself. Maybe we'll talk later. I knew that would set her off. I wasn't playing by anyone's rules anymore. Then came the more strategic part of my plan. I knew I had to hit my parents where it hurt the most. They didn't care about me, but they did care about status. The bigger the news, the bigger the impact. So I made a few phone calls. First, I arranged an interview with a local news outlet. It was a small station, but they had a loyal following. The story would be simple. Local woman wins $581 million. A story of triumph. There were no details about the money, no specifics, just enough to create curiosity. Then, I made sure to set the date for the interview to coincide with one of my mom's big charity events. That event, a gala she had been planning for months, was going to be my stage. My moment. I wasn't going to just walk in, all flashy and showy. No, I would be the quiet guest, the one who had finally arrived in a room full of their people. I would stand there, calmly sipping a glass of wine while they were surrounded by their social circle. And at the right moment, when all eyes were on them, I would make my grand entrance. The day of the gala arrived. I had already made sure to tell my parents I wouldn't be attending. I knew they'd expect me to stay hidden. I knew they'd believe I had abandoned them. But what they didn't know was that I had already made arrangements to be there. I wasn't going to attend as their daughter. I was going to attend as someone who had power. As the event started, I sat quietly in a car outside the venue, watching the scene unfold. The rich and the famous, the socialites, all gathering in their glamorous outfits. Amanda's laughter echoed through the windows, and I could see her showing off her engagement ring like it was the world's most precious jewel. But it wasn't her night. It was mine. I stepped out of the car wearing a simple black dress, understated but elegant. My hair was pinned back, my face free of makeup because I didn't need to hide anymore. This was my moment. I knew exactly where to go. I walked toward the entrance, my heels clicking on the pavement. The camera crews and guests barely looked up. But as I entered the ballroom, a hush fell over the room. It was time to make them feel my presence. And just as I thought I'd faded into the background, someone from the press approached me with a microphone. "Are you Rachel?" they asked, recognizing me from the earlier interview. I nodded, smiling coldly. "Can you tell us a bit about your winnings?" they asked, their voice almost shaky. The room went quiet. "I'd rather not," I said with a soft smile. "Not yet." And that was it. The seeds had been planted. I could see the panic on my parents' faces, their eyes flickering toward me. Amanda's mouth hung open, disbelief in her eyes. They had no idea what was coming next. The storm was just beginning. The room was electric with confusion, whispers spreading like wildfire. Guests, trying to maintain composure, exchanged glances. My parents' faces turned ashen. Amanda's perfect smile faltered, her eyes darting from me to the press, her voice caught in her throat. I didn't have to say a word. The shock on their faces said everything. They had no idea what was happening. They had no idea what was coming. But I did. I had been patient, calculated, silent, and now I was ready to watch it all unfold. The press had been expecting a grand statement. They wanted the scoop, the grand revelation that would make headlines. But instead they got nothing. Nothing but a calm, composed woman in the midst of their chaos. I hadn't said anything of real value. I hadn't dropped the bomb yet. I sipped my wine slowly, savoring the taste. Every sip felt like the slow burn of revenge, a reminder of all the years I'd spent being invisible. And then, when the timing was right, I made my move. I turned to my parents, who were trying to piece together what had just happened. My dad, who had spent so many years undermining me, his mouth working but no words coming out. My mom, her face flushed with panic, reached out to me, her voice trembling. "Rach, honey, what is this all about?" Her voice wavered, the warmth that had always been a facade for her manipulation slipping away. "We didn't know you were involved with the media. Why didn't you tell us?" I glanced at her, but I didn't speak right away. I didn't need to. My silence was more powerful than anything I could have said. Finally, I broke it, my voice calm and clear. "Because I didn't want to share this moment with you," I said. "I didn't want to share it with anyone. But I think it's time you knew. I won the lottery. $581 million. The words hung in the air like a bomb, ready to explode. I watched their faces. The horror. The panic. My father's hands gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. His lips parted, but no words came out. My mother's breath hitched, her eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time in my life, I saw them scared. Not just scared of what they had done, but scared of me. Amanda was the first to speak, her voice shaky. You're lying." Her words were weak, desperate. This isn't real." But I didn't respond to her. Instead, I turned to my father, who looked like he might collapse. "Remember when you told me that I'd never make it? That I'd always be the one left behind?" I didn't give him time to answer. "Well, it looks like I made it." The words cut through the room like a blade. I could see the color drain from their faces. They had spent so many years treating me like I was invisible, like I was the second choice. They had neglected me for years, throwing Amanda's success in my face, telling me I wasn't enough. But now I was the one holding all the cards. "I've made my peace with this, but I don't think you ever will," I said softly. "And honestly, I don't care." I turned to leave, leaving them in their state of shock. The silence was deafening. The payoff of all my patience, all my planning had come to fruition. I wasn't going to beg for their approval anymore. I didn't need them. I stepped out of the ballroom, the cold night air greeting me like a familiar friend. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but I wasn't interested in any of it. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about something much bigger. It was about showing them that, despite everything they had done, I had risen above it. I had made something of myself. And now they had to face the consequences of their neglect. My chest swelled with a sense of relief. I had finally taken my power back. As I walked away from that night, the weight I had been carrying for years seemed to lift. I thought about all the hurt, all the moments when I felt overlooked, like I didn't matter. But now, I knew I wasn't just the invisible daughter. I was someone who could stand tall, who had the strength to change her life and her story. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. The most powerful feeling was not the millions I had in my bank account, but the freedom I had gained from not letting them control me anymore. They thought they could shape my destiny, but they were wrong. My story wasn't theirs to write. It was mine, and I had reclaimed it. As I sat there, reflecting on everything, I smiled through the pain. The lesson was clear. Never let anyone define your worth. What would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments.